Well, welcome to another episode of Chestnut Checkers. My name is Keith Riddle, as most of you know, with my co-host Jordan Tampien. And today our guest is Reed Moore.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
None other than.
Yes.
So just because me and Reed have decent relationship as friends.
Sounds like you do.
Wow, that's all I
That's
get.
pretty deep. That's your intro. Actually, he's worked on that for like the last 30 minutes. So
I wasn't going to go. Me and Reed know each other intimately.
I like how you classified that.
there we go.
Yeah.
That's better.
So we don't need a co-host for this one.
Way to stoke the hype.
Yeah.
Jordan, feel free to excuse yourself.
Let's lead with that.
Oh, God, I'm going to start over.
You can't anymore. It's
No,
live.
great.
Anyways, just because I know Reed so well, I'm going to ask him about this because now that we're recording, Reed, what the hell's with the mustache?
So this is my friend Charlie.
This is your friend Charlie?
He precedes me
Personified.
like he kind of paves the way
It's
for.
just new to me.
Yeah.
It's just new to me.
Well, so
I've known Reed the whole time with the beard, full facial hair. Now I got partial Reed.
Yeah, I had a great beard and decided it was time to get rid of the beard. And in the process of doing that, I saw myself in the mirror with a mustache, and I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to go with this for a bit. And the first time in my married life that my wife would actually kiss me with a mustache, so I figured it'd just stick around for a little while.
Nice.
You've never done mustache before?
Yeah,
As
for
long
like
as the full?
for like a day. Like I like
yeah.
kissing my wife, and it was just like past the day. I was like, all right.
Well, so if you
just gotta
shaved a mustache before, she wouldn't kiss you?
no, she was just no.
Oh.
She's like, I'm out. So it's good motivation.
That's no better motivation.
You get in
I
a
was
fight
saying.
and Reed's in there just shaving a mustache.
Yeah.
I'm show her.
I'll cut it. Charlie's going. Charlie's going.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. And Reed's, he we'll get into this in a bit, but Reed is in the real estate space, and his office has started posting up random pictures of famous people with mustaches.
Oh, yeah.
So like Tom Selleck's up there, and
Well,
like
the
Oh, yeah.
legend.
Kevin
the
Reynolds.
legend. Come
Burt
on.
Reynolds,
And
Kevin
that's
Costner.
thick-esque, too. That looks like a Selleck type.
Yeah,
That's-
it's like a family tradition. Like all my dad and all of his brothers, right? Like they all have the mustache, so it's like it's a more man thing. And so all my aunts think
is a
this is
more
the
man
hottest
thing.
thing ever. All my aunts are like, oh my gosh, you look good.
He's grown
I'm
up.
just jealous because I don't grow a good mustache. I have like scruff, but if I shave down to nothing but a mustache, I look like very Hispanic.
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
can see that. I can see that. Yeah, obviously, I don't try to grow any of it out. It's just patchy. Just patchy and uncomfortable.
Do you? Well, this is a hell of a podcast. Do you shave? Do you shave with a straight razor? Either one of you guys shave with a straight razor?
I like going in. It closed. What was the place on Monroe? Dan's. The only time
Dan's
I've ever done
Barbershop?
straight razors was I'd go in there and get one.
And by a straight razor, I just mean like not an electric razor.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
like an actual.
Oh yeah, normal razor.
Like
Not-
a normal
not
razor?
Not a like.
Oh, you mean like a Gillette razor?
Yeah.
Like five. Yeah, it's like a 5-blade or whatever
I
it
can
is.
count on one hand the amount of times I've actually Gillette razored my face of any type.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you use?
Just an electric razor.
I thought he's talking like Sweeney Todd
Yeah,
style.
that's what I was thinking too.
No,
I'm
no,
like,
not like
that's
a
legit.
straight. Yeah, there's not too many.
So I've never
men
done
that-
that.
Like I'm not manly
That's like
enough to do
Crocodile
that.
Dundee, you know, like
pull out your blade. Just,
yeah.
So
That's
let's
not a
preface
knife.
this introduction, Reed. So introduced as friend of Keith, mustache
Kind of.
named
Kind-
Charlie,
well,
yes.
and a very strong familial tie to said mustache.
Yes, exactly.
I think we're done here. I mean, I feel like that's good. You've already set the tone for what this is going to be. So, on that note, since I don't know you as well, tell me a little about yourself. What got you here?
Yeah. So grew up in Western Montana, Flathead Lake area.
Oh, yeah.
And Spokane was like the big city, right?
Yeah.
So after high school, I ended up getting shipped up to Anchorage, Alaska in the military. I did telecommunications, fiber optic, cryptography, stuff like that. And when I was up there, ended up getting out. I had a 4-year tour, and then extended for a while. They asked me to stay on for some reason, so I stayed on. And after that, ended up switching over into real estate. So I went from paycheck every 2 weeks to commission sales. Had no idea what I was doing, and had a broker that was just like he would just hand me kind of his scraps, and so I just would like call people. Paid the bills for a while, and then after about 6 years of just being in real estate, just kind of paying the bills, started to realize that what real estate could be was a career and a business, and ultimately a place for my mission to play out, building wealth and wholeness with everyone we serve. Like I've just always been a people builder is what I care to do, and I'm a little bit too aggressive to do that in most spaces. So the business space ended up being
Encourages it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
Go back one step on that. How most people don't have a mission for their life. I've heard of missions for businesses. How did you come across creating that, or was it just kind of the military background of, hey, I need an objective?
It was a lot of pain.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
All
now we're
good
getting at
growth.
the heart of it.
there we go. Yeah.
Tell us about the hurt
Now the
spot.
mustache makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's covering the scars.
Yeah.
So no, I got out of the military and started doing real estate, and I was working with youth and young adults. So kind of my business really it paid for my ministry habit.
Okay.
Right. Doing work in the church, loved that. Loved serving kids, and I was really good at it. And through that series of, through that time period, I ended up actually launching a salon and day spa with my wife. Obviously, not an industry I was familiar with.
I mean, the mustache would say otherwise, but yes.
That's right. Yeah. So ended up launching a salon and day spa, and really the heart behind it was there was a place in Alaska that did most of the training for the ladies that were in that industry. And if you know anybody in the beauty industry, there tends to be kind of a polarization of people who are there because they're passionate about it, it's what they want to do, or they have a really hard knock life and it's their last ditch effort to kind of like make a living for them and most likely like their kid. And so this place just preyed on these ladies. I mean, it was like drugs, prostitution, just a horrible place. And so one of the young ladies that we were mentoring, she was in that space. She was really good. And we said, hey, like if we build something that's big enough and strong enough, we could actually make a play to buy this place and to turn it into a place that actually is the opposite of what it was. Mm-hmm. Great intentions, no business acumen, all of the stupidity that comes along with being in your young 20s. If you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. This is before the crash. So it's like anybody would give me money. Any bank was like, how much money do you want? Right?
Exactly.
Well, I don't know, $500,000. You sure that's all? I'm like, I make $60,000 a year. Can I have more? Right? I mean, that was the environment. So we launched the business. It actually did pretty well. And then our business partner said, hey, this isn't what I want to do with my life. And so that pulled the ripcord out from under us. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was doing a full-time job working with youth, full-time job doing real estate, and then had this other business. Yeah. Right. And, there's this look, everybody on the outside is like, oh my gosh, look at you, look at all you can do and all that stuff. And you just know inside you're just like,
duck on water, man.
Oh,
it's a duck
man.
on water.
That's exactly right, man. My legs were
true.
kicking. And I was always the guy, like life could never buckle my knees, right? I just like strong, broad shoulders, right? Like I have room for my priorities and yours and anybody else's. And I rolled into a new year and, we were $800,000 in debt, mid-20s. Have never
just on the salon or including real estate ventures or anything like that.
Just on the salon.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't that much over time. It actually became that, but it was probably 600,000 at the time because it was if you build they will come. It was not like a little like hole in the wall place. It was a legit competitive place. And so I just remember rolling into a January and life just buckled my knees. I mean, and I remember like I have a great relationship with my parents, but our whole family's super independent. And so, I talk to my mom every couple months, right?
Yeah.
It's great. I called my mom and I just said, Mom, and I started bawling, right? And she freaked out because I had done that since I was since I was like 8 years old, right? Yeah. And so that next year was that year where all of a sudden I had to look around and realize like I have to make really hard decisions and I got to get my crap together. And so the next many years of life was digging out of that hole. And it was just hard. It was that first year was it was the most painful year of our life. It was I worked basically 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and a half of a day on Sunday just so I had a little bit of time to roll around with the kids. And it was every morning was like you get up ultra depressed, go stand in the shower with your head against the wall.
Jeez, sounds like my last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, and
feels like a hole you never can get out of.
No, but because you have to go do it again, like there's no better option. Yeah. You get up, you go to the office, like you put on a smiley face, you're like, yeah, high five, let's do this thing, and then you work yourself to, you just grind yourself to a pulp. And then you go to bed, either crying yourself to sleep or just in the fetal position, and then you wake up and do it again. Yeah. And that was an entire year, and that trickled into multiple years.
Yeah,
but that year
the
was
big first year.
Yeah. But ultimately, it was the year where I'd like to think I was a smart enough guy to make really good decisions, not having to come to those really hard impasses. But that unfortunately is not my story, and it turns out it's not most people's story. No. Right.
Jeez.
Had my first success, never looked back. Just been success ever since.
That's why Keith is running this
All I do is win.
All I do is
It's like
win.
DJ Khaled over here.
Yeah.
What are some of those? Because I've faced this last couple years a very similar one of digging a pretty deep hole that I just didn't anticipate rates going up that much.
Yeah.
What are things you did outside of the head against the wall in a shower, like on a daily basis, to keep going? Like, that's a long time. Everybody says a year, and we say, oh, yeah, it's 1 year because you're 45.
Yeah.
But the reality is that year you're in might as well be 10.
Oh, yeah.
And it's every day isn't 16. You're like, there's not enough time and you're working 16.
No. I just remember kissing my wife and saying, I love you and I'll see you in a year. And that was our life.
Crazy.
That year, right? Really, really hard. I think there was a handful of things. One is there was a level of humility that happened that year that I had to, I had to embrace the fact that people that I thought that weren't as far along as me actually had the answers I needed for the next step. That was hard, right? So there's a lot of humility that had to take place in that season. There was a lot of focus, and that was one of the bigger things is saying no to things. If you're not successful at all and you're not busy at all, it's just easy. But as soon as you start getting a reputation for like you're the go-to guy, and then you become the go-to guy across multiple different things, to now not be the go-to guy, it's this punch in the gut, right? So saying no has this piece of ego attached to it that feels like saying I'm not enough or I'm not good enough, but that's such an unbelievable trap.
Yeah.
And so I had to just pare my life down all the way back to where it was, the practical elements of my year were I work and I spend time with my kids and I scratch and claw to keep my spiritual life together.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, and that's all it was. And it was barely that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like see a light when you were, 800, depending on what you're making. I mean, that's a hole, right? Like, was it?
Yeah. That was 20 years ago. So that was
that's
was a big number.
1.62 these days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost a double number.
It was, we were in so much, I was in so much pain at the time that all I could do for a while was just to like look down at my feet and just kind of take the next step. Yeah. And I had a few people come around me. One guy gave me a free ticket to a national conference.
Okay.
And I'd never been to anything like that. I've never invested in my learning or anything like that. It was specifically to real estate.
Yeah.
And so I had so much debt that I had all the air miles that I needed. And I found a hotel that I think it was like $26 a day. And I want to say that on the last credit card, I had just enough for 3 days in a hotel.
Was this a hotel or a motel?
Oh, it was a motel. No, yeah, just for clarity, it was a motel.
That's almost a no-tel at that point.
Yeah, it was
a no-tel motel.
Yeah.
At $26.
That's it. It was in Orlando, and I had to walk about 3 miles because every hotel that was around the conference center was way out of my price.
$300 a night or something.
Oh yeah, but they fed you a janky breakfast at the time the conference had lunch, and so I was able to eat twice a day.
Yeah. Nice.
And all of a sudden, I just saw what was possible in real estate and business. And so I came back, and there was just this, like the light at the end of the tunnel, or just that's possible. And that just launched me into like, I'm just going to work my tail off this year. And all of a sudden, my business tripled in that year. Which it didn't solve anything, but like it meant my family was eating and the bills were getting paid, right? And that was that year of just kind of building hope. And then the going backwards in all of the areas that people looked at me like, wow, you're good at all this stuff. Once I pared that back, it created this clarity around what I'm here on this earth to do is build people. Mm-hmm. Where I'm actually good at that is business. Yeah. The business I know is real estate. So I'm going to go all in on that because I just don't know any better plan.
Man, yeah, that is tough. It's easy to talk. It's easy to read a book that tells you how to walk through it. It's easy to say, take another step. There is some insane pressure in that. How do you think, outside of humility, that it changed you from the person you? Because I've had that feeling where it was like everything I touched for probably 8 years was gold. Like,
yeah.
And then I look back and I'm like, well, but the market went up 22%. So like now I'm looking at that. Okay, that's a false one. And then mine was a similar journey where I'm like, Jesus, no, now it's not. What do you think the biggest change, like in just how you approach life, even not necessarily real estate, but just kind of the fundamentals of how you approach it?
So one of the things that there were a couple mindset shifts. One was I stopped looking at success or successful people as like the high school quarterback, right? They were born that way, right? Like all the stars aligned, they're the kid that wanted to be a firefighter since they were 2, and they're the firefighter. Because up to that point, I think success was a lottery issue for me in my mind. It was luck. And then what I realized is no, actually success is habits and skills and decisions built over time. And that one of my biggest competitive advantages is to just continue to grow and continue to learn. And so I think that year was the first year that I just started being very, very intentional about, you could say, being learning based. The challenge is I think I've always had a bias towards being ignorance based. And when I choose to be somebody who's an avid reader and somebody who goes to all these classes, even now after being in business for like 23 years, it's something that I just have to choose to do, right? But it changed this whole idea of, if I can get 1% better, right? All of those kind of sayings over a long period of time, I can do really well.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was one of the biggest things that year was really rewiring the way that I looked at success or the potential for success. It wasn't aloof. It wasn't for the few. It was for whoever just decided to take the next step and the next and the next and the next.
Yeah. Do you think the military background prepared you at all for going through that and creating systems, or was that, is that helpful?
It was probably somewhat helpful. The embarrassing thing that I did is when I got out of the military, I let the real estate environment that I allowed myself to be in to erode most of my good habits.
Yeah.
Right. So
It'll do that. That's for sure.
I show up at the office at 6 a.m, right? Like, let's go, let's do this. Nobody's in the office till 11. Yeah. Right. And over the course of time, well, there's no reason to go to the office, and there's no reason to put your pants on, right? All that. Yeah. So I had allowed that to happen. Right. Which, looking back, really foolish, but the reality is that, one of the things I've come to learn, especially with just having a desire to build people, is your environment matters. Yeah. Right. I'd like to say that I'm the guy that can just go it alone, lone wolf it. My environment doesn't matter. And, some people I think are wired better that way. But for me, I have to be really intentional with surrounding myself with people who want to go a direction that I want to go. Or even, Keith and I go to the gym together. Me moving across town, going to new gym with Keith was a key marker in my health journey. Oh, yeah. Because now I have somebody who models this, who I can show up, and I mean, he used to show up. There it is. There it is.
Need a couple of those.
Yeah. But really, like, just, people have been so gracious in my life to invite me into the life where, looking back, I'm like, I don't really know what they saw at that moment, but they invited me in and let me kind of come along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm only going to steal the show for a little bit longer. But when you're building that kind of people surrounding you,
over here in the corner.
I know. Just don't complain. There's only a couple more because it's very. I told you I'm selfishly creating this podcast. Yeah. So I'm on that same journey of like learning those pieces, and I think it's funny now. So I got my MBA right after law school because I was like, I'm gonna go do mergers and acquisitions. So I did it, and I look back and I'm like, I should never have done that then. Like, I should have done the MBA now that I've gone through and owned businesses, because it'll make more sense. I can apply it, and I look at my entire journey, and that's what it feels like sometimes. Is I know it now, and I look back, and I'm like, God, that's what you were supposed to do. And it's this piece, but one of the ones that I just have this like trusting heart for people and my just deep desire to help people. And one of the issues was it blinded who I let in close.
Oh my gosh.
And so, like, kind of as you're looking through that, I'm trying to build up what that looks like as well. Because I'm in my world, there's going to be that close that influences, but then there's that close of just like friends and that level. But how do you kind of screen and protect that of who truly is that? What's the saying? 5 people you surround yourself with, type thing. But what are some things you're looking for besides Keith? I mean, obviously I hang out with him, but like, what are some things you're looking for now? Because you've seen what that low looks like, of who was there, who stepped up, who wasn't.
Yeah, I would say that I probably don't let many people close to me that I can't see their battle scars.
That's a good one.
Right, like there's something about the meat grinder that every successful person I've ever met has gone through at some point. And there's almost like a resonance with that person. Like, you look in the eyes and you're like, okay, like, you've suffered.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a level of, until you're tested, nobody really knows how you're going to show up in this particular space. So I think there's a matter of battle tested. I think that there's a nuance around there's not going to be many people or anybody in your life that is going to be somebody who is going to model what it looks like to be a husband and a father and a great business person and their spiritual life and their wealth, like all of that. And so one of the things I learned from a mentor early on was take the best and leave the rest. And it was helpful because one of my other, foibles was just the level of judgmental that I was in that season, right? You see other people that aren't making, you're like, what are you doing? Like, what's your problem? Turns out I was way worse off than they were, right? By a long shot. So you start looking at somebody and you're just like, man, that is somebody that I absolutely want to have in my life in this area. And then you watch this other area of their life, you're like, gee, okay, I don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I can limit my exposure to this person to times where we're both serving and loving and helping each other, and then minimize the amount of time that we're spending time together that is outside of that kind of like magic moment.
Yeah.
This is why me and Reed only go to the gym together.
I was gonna say that's the magic moment, right?
That's right.
Just the gym is the magic moment.
The gym. And vacation and business and all that.
There's a couple other things.
There is.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I pick up from what you're saying, though, Reed, is like, you don't have to have perfect people in your life or even find perfect people to pick up role models, to pick up mentors. I mean, somebody can be good at just one specific thing and you can create a relationship with them around that one thing. Yeah. Draw off that and not have to, get married to them, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's very few people. That are so close in life that there's so many layers of overlap that I would say you can share life together, right? When you find that group of people, it's unbelievable, right? I mean, they're the people that they have your back. I put something out on Facebook the other day about there's conversations there has been for the last 5 years about safe spaces. And some of those conversations drive me crazy, but I just thought, I think the safest, what actually is a safe space is if you have people that you can be around, that you can say dangerous and unsafe things with.
Yeah. And when you say that, is that more dangerous and unsafe from a societal view or from a vulnerability of yourself?
I think both.
Okay.
Right? Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced, but there's things in my head that I want to process with somebody. Like, they might be crazy, they might be brilliant, but I can't process over here because it's going to trigger somebody and that person's going to think it's all about them and they're going to get insecure and. But I go over here and I have this group of guys and I'm just like, hey, I'm thinking this. And somebody else is like, man, I'm glad you said that because that crap's going through my head too. Yeah. Right? And that's been just amazing to have like that small group of specifically guys in my life that are like that.
Do you feel like you attract that now though? Like, do you feel like it's something you don't have to consciously, like, you see Keith over there and you have to pull him in? Like, do you feel like it's just what you're doing day to day is pulling that kind of thing towards you?
I think probably more than any other season of my life. Okay. There's you get to a certain point where you're not trying to prove anything to anybody. Yeah. At least, it's a smaller percentage of
still
time.
Still element too, right? There's some.
Yeah. But I think there's a level of that where, if somebody thinks highly or lowly of me, it's like, I have a 25-year track record of doing right by people. Yeah. And it's like, okay, your opinion definitely is your opinion now. And I would say that, when you hear somebody say, I don't care what anybody else thinks, that's a huge blind spot. Yeah. Like, I really want to deeply care about what the right people think. Yeah. And if I've identified those people I really want that feedback from, or if they say something like that's going to hurt me, I know that's because they care.
I don't think it's because I don't care what people think, or like even a lot of people. I would segment it to say, like, I stopped worrying about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I do care what people think. I care of, like what my parents think of me, or, like there's people in my life where I'm like, I value their opinion of me. And if that opinion is going south, I want to be like, why, or what's going, but I also, I think, can have my mom disagree or be ashamed or embarrassed of like something I said, and also be like, yeah, mom, she's going to love me tomorrow. It's fine. Like, I'm not going to deviate my behavior. Right. Yeah. So I don't know, like, there's a balance there between like not caring about what people think, but also you can care about what people think and not deviate your. Yeah. If you're true to yourself, right? Like if I fundamentally know that what I'm doing is the right thing or the right decision, and people are not going to appreciate it or like it or talk bad about it, for whatever reason, as I've gotten older, like that just to me is like an easier decision.
Yeah.
Before it was like, man, I know this is the right thing to do, and I still don't want to do it because everybody's gonna, say these things about me or do these things. Now I'm kind of old enough and callous enough. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever.
do you
They'll
really
figure it out.
Yeah, but then do you really care about the opinion?
Well, I care about it in the sense of like I wish it was different, and if I could do both, like if I could have people be happy with me and appreciate what I'm doing and do the thing, that would be the idea.
Yeah.
But if it comes down to like not being true to myself or being authentic or doing what I feel is the right decision or right thing in the moment, and having people be upset by it, I'm going to choose they can be upset by it all day.
Yeah,
But I don't think that was true for a younger Keith. Like just being transparent.
yeah,
Like,
definitely
I
wasn't
used
true.
to deviate my decisions and my behaviors based on how they would land.
Yeah.
Right. And so at some point, it's like you're really not in control of your life at that point, or like a big portion of your life, especially when, let's be honest, the majority of the time that those things happen are the bigger moments, not the smaller moments.
No, huge.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the bigger moments where the stakes go up. But that's when you're going to get the most eyeballs and the most judgment or the most decisions. But that's also when the decision is the most important.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the stakes are the highest. It's interesting because there's this nuance of, I think it seems like the older, or hopefully maybe more mature you get, the more committed to maybe being on a direction or on a mission, or this is my path, and so you're less prone to deviating from it. And I think the dark side of that can be that it's not always just the thing that I'm doing, but it's the thing I'm doing, the way I'm doing it, how I'm showing up to other people, and all of that. And so there's this element of I want to go down this path without being diverted by other people's opinions, and I don't want to be so unself-aware, and rigid that over the course of time, I hurt relationships and I do other things because it's not just what I'm doing, but it's the way that I'm doing it. Yeah. So there's this element of that I'm still trying to figure out, which is how do I remain teachable and locked in on target.
Well, what happens if part of getting to that destination does hurt people? Right. So like sometimes you'll see something. So one thing I go through now is like, I guess somebody came up to me and they were pissed because at Garland, we were taking all their parking spots. They're super frustrated. And I haven't owned the Garland in 12 months. And so I'm like, there's this entire narrative that will be spread that you have no real control. Yeah. And so for me, I've had to get over that because I had to almost get to the point where you don't care and you're trying to not to have a blind spot, because there's wisdom sometimes in feedback. Yeah. But it just got to the point where I'm like, the bigger things I do, there is always 50 that love it and 50 that don't.
Yeah, that's
and trying to figure that piece of it out. And so I've had to move myself to where it's like I care about the people that care about me, and so like really sitting on that. But it still makes it difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I was talking to a guy who ran for governor of the state of Idaho a while back, and I got a chance to just talk to him one-on-one and said, "Hey, like, what was it like walking through this with your family?"
Oh, yeah.
And it was brutal because just every possible thing imaginable about their entire life was just absolutely full on brutally attacked, right? And there's this interesting thing where when people are more and more and more exposed, I think there's just levels of maturity that have to show up because they have the pressure that most people don't.
Yeah. But like that would be a perfect example. The one I was saying, even with Garland or with that one, right, is you're going to face that feedback, but you want to be governor. Like I want to build Garland, so I'm going to build it, but you're going to inevitably get that kind of critical feedback. Not even critical, sometimes, I'm not going to use the word critical, but you're going to get that negative feedback on a lot of it. And it's how do you walk through that? How do you acknowledge it, right? Because you don't want to discount the person. Their feeling's real. That person, whatever they believe, they believe.
What you're talking about, though, too, I think there's an aspect of it that's unfairly judged. Right. So like,
they just don't know me. They don't know enough facts to judge it, right?
But I would differentiate between like, I'm going to make a decision and it's going to make some people mad versus like fighting perception of things that aren't even real.
Oh, gotcha.
Right?
So maybe intentionality's in there. Maybe there's some intentionality.
Yeah, but if you're concerned about or disheartened by these false narratives about you, or these kind of like this stuff's not even true, I think that's also a little bit different to deal with than like, oh no, it's true, I'm building an apartment, I'm taking all of your parking. I just don't give a shit that you are sad about it.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking, is when your mission, that is you're going to build those apartments,
but it's
right?
like, but the flip side of the coin is like, I'm not even the person doing it. Someone else is doing it. You just have a narrative that I'm doing it.
It's even crazier. Yeah.
But then, I don't know.
But I think it's a big deal. The more you try to do it, and again, it sounds like your mission is outward focused to really go help people, but you're going to go out and there's going to be some people looking at what you're doing as, hey, maybe you're just taking advantage of them for your own real estate business, your own gain, your own piece. And I was like, man, how do people look at it that way? And it's been this struggle where I'm a black and white, where I'm like, hey, nope, that means I just don't care. But I agree with you. I never even thought about it really, but that creates a massive blind spot because then you're not open to that learning and that almost that curiosity because you're like, nope.
Yeah,
I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater type thing.
One of the things that happened probably for the next 7 years after going through that season was fighting bitterness, unforgiveness, resentment, those things. And it's like, if you give in to bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness, or the other one, which is shame.
Yeah, it's a lot of shame, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right? Like in my mind, I was that guy. Like I can't even tell you exactly what that guy means, but like you're on top of the world, or at least like you feel that way, and all of a sudden you're that guy. Nobody said that to me.
Like when you walk in a room, you thought everyone was talking about you.
Yeah, you're that guy.
Yeah, we're gonna skip those.
Everybody here,
yeah.
That's perception.
Right.
That's
totally.
Your mind, right? It turns out nobody's actually thinking about me that much.
Nobody cares enough, right?
Nobody cares.
The dude's name's Rodney. Something I can't remember what his last name is. He's on Instagram. But I love him. He's this old bearded hippie dude. But he's always like, if you only know how little people were thinking about you because they're all worried about thinking about themselves, you wouldn't be such a concern of what people are thinking about you.
Right. Yeah.
And it's always such a I don't know. It lands so well because a lot of us are so worried about what other people think about us, and this is where this conversation's spurring from. And yet, in the big picture, most people have so much other shame, guilt, their own baggage that they're really not that concerned about you.
Yeah. There's almost this kind of this analogy I had to go through in my mind around that, and that is, when I leave the house during the day, I need to put on my battle suit, right? Like I'm going to take some hits, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to suck again, but I have to be able to take that off when I come home. And so it was 7 years of fighting those feelings, but you start realizing, like, if I get hard, not battle hardened, but if my heart gets hard, and I live in unforgiveness, and I live in shame, and I live in bitterness. Right, like there's almost feeling of like, "Ha, I got you." Yeah. Like, see, look what I get to hold on to, and like the old analogy is like unforgiveness is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. Yeah. Like that doesn't work, right? So there was a season of just really trying to work that stuff out because it is easier just to be like, you know what, screw the world. Like, you all suck. I hate you all.
Go buy a little cabin in Flathead, Montana.
That's right. Like, I'm out.
What's that Lion King saying? When the world turns their back on you, you turn your back on the world, right?
Exactly.
And it's like that. That's a natural reaction because you're like, look, what's. And I guess I'm getting to it because I actually want to hear more about your business, how you built it. But it's what we find is most people don't recover from that. And so now your business, which I'm excited to hear about, is like could never have happened if you didn't push for those 7 years. Or like I read those stories of like Joseph in the Bible, and they gloss over the 10 years in prison. I'm like, he woke up every day wondering, I did everything right.
10 years in prison, wrongfully accused, right? And he comes out like not hard and will kill everybody. Like,
right? And it's one of those where it's I think my story resonates more with Job at this point, but it felt like it was one of those pieces, and I was like, but it's so easy to. And I remember literally having this aha moment of like, quit blaming people. I got myself here. You're gonna work hard. You're gonna show up, take the calls. I probably take 6 calls in a day that somebody gets once a year.
Yeah. Oof.
And they're the hard ones, and they're the really. And then every time you're like, nope, but keep making it and keep making it. And the me a year ago is different than the me today, which will be different than the me tomorrow. And I think that showing up piece is big.
Yeah.
And so now it's interesting to see kind of how you've applied it, and don't have. I don't know. I could just see somebody going through the same experience and being like resentful of it, and then blaming up is the market.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that, but it doesn't fix anything.
I think that's the thing I'm battling with the most right now.
Yeah.
Is watching people that I know, love, and care about in that spot.
Yeah.
Like mad, angry, resentful.
Yeah.
Not really owning their situation or their scenario, and blaming, right? And that's a hard thing, I think, to watch if you care about people, because it's like poison, right? Like, but it's tough, and it's hard. It's hard to have a conversation with them about it.
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of being a victim right now.
Maybe
this is your fault.
The way you want to say it to them is probably not going to be well received.
Right.
No, but
well, I think that going into this conversation of like leadership and business growth and development and all of this stuff like that, one of the the nuance, the separator between like successful business people is having those conversations and doing it. Like I said, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that, Reed, hats off to him, is kind of a master of, that I've seen in the past, is like truly being able to have difficult conversations with people able to have like guiding conversations with people, or it's just guiding people in general in a way that respects them.
Yeah.
Right? Like in a way where they leave going, man, that was a really tough conversation with Reed today, but I'm glad he had it with me. Yeah. I would say coin toss, I have those conversations and people are like, fuck, he's a prick.
Not Keith.
Damn it. And I'm like, you didn't hear anything I just said. And they're like, yeah, it's the way you delivered it, you jerk.
Yeah.
It's funny. Mine are on the other side where it's like they end up being like really excited and then you don't deliver. And then it's almost like this worse. And I was like, would it have been better just to say, sorry, I just won't have it. Like, but I'm working, I'm showing up every day. And I was like, I don't know which one was the better one, but whereas my brother Joel, military background, he would just sit you down and be like, nope, sorry, this thing lost money.
Yeah.
What'd you guys miss? I don't know. The market changed and we're here every day. We're going to keep this asset. And once it does what we said it was going to do, it's just not on the schedule we thought, guys.
Right.
And they'll leave, but to that effect. And they'll be like really frustrated at him, really pissed because you want to be mad, but then you're like, God, at least he shot me straight with it. And it was like a good lesson for me because I still wanted him to like me at the end. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, why do I need them? Like, I want to do right by them.
What about that?
But what about that? And the only reason we dive into it was funny because somebody asked me, are you guys going to talk about real estate deals and your business? I think we mentioned them a few times. But I think what people miss is there's the battle scar is such a good word, but of like going through these and what it prepares you to and kind of what you're being prepared for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I have to imagine it's led to a few things in your life where you're like, man, having not gone through that.
Oh yeah. Like there's just things that used to stress me out and they just don't even register anymore. Right. Like, so the level of the tolerance of or unsurety, all that stuff just goes up and up and up, right, over time, which if you talk to somebody who came back from, Fallujah or some just horrible situation, I have a good buddy that's like that. And it's like, man, if you want to get his blood pressure up, like, good luck.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nothing in the civilian world is going to come anywhere close to what he's seen. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So he's battle tested, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your business and what your kind of business is.
Yeah. So primary business is RMG Real Estate. So we do residential and commercial real estate in Alaska. So that's in South Central Alaska, which is typically Anchorage and the Mat-Su Valley or Wasilla and Palmer. And then we also service Spokane and Coeur d'Alene as well. So we do right around $200 million in production. And I think we have somewhere like mid-30s as far as the agents go and about 10 staff.
Awesome.
So
all started with just you? And you kept building it out? Nice.
Yeah, it was me sitting in a hallway cubicle, and I did that until like the files fell off the side, and I was just like, hey, it was like a sadistic thing from the guy who was mentoring me because I had this big private office at this office that I sold no real estate in.
Yeah,
right. Mountain view was beautiful. Top producer, it turns out, in the little company, right? And so he's like, great, sit in the hallway, literally, right? I was like, okay, because I'm just broken at this point. Just I'm like, whatever, I need to trust somebody, and you seem to be a trustworthy guy, so let's go. And just started doing it, and went from at the time it was like $3.5 million to almost $10 million in sales. This was the average sales price was like $120,000, something like that. So did that, got to the end of that first year, and I was starting to be able to breathe just a little bit. And roll into the next year, hit somewhere around like 15, 20 million in production. And realized, I need help. So some people took pity on me and kind of helped me out a little bit. And I started down the path of actually building a real estate sales team, which is just the beginning of a self-employed entity business. And I was sitting in a class learning how to hire people. And they started talking about the cost of a bad partnership or the cost of a bad hire. And that's when I first totaled up how much money I was in debt. Because there's a pretty significant design.
You're like, I have a real life example. Can I use the chalkboard?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Hypothetical.
So I start telling all this up, and I just go pale and get sick to my stomach. Right, I go to the bathroom, just standing there because for the first time I'd actually faced reality.
Done the math,
Done the math. Okay, come back. I don't hear anything else for the rest of the day. Come back the next day to class, and the instructor's talking. It's Charlie Brown, the wah wah wah. And then all of a sudden out of the blue, he says, this is Zig Ziglar quote, and he said, if you help enough other people get what they want in their life, you won't have to worry a day about yours. And it just like woke me out of a daze. You know, I did my little note taking with all the stars and asterisks and like scribbles. I woke up the next day and I looked at Rebecca and I just said, what if you didn't say that because that's like this really cool motivational speaker thing to say? What if you can actually build a life and a business that way? And that became really the experiment that became the company, which is I'm a people builder. I'm passionate about this. I think I'm pretty good at it. What if I put all my focus on actually getting great at that? And can I build a big business that way?
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, so
That's a good quote.
It worked. It's awesome. It's great. The last 2 years have been like honestly, like some PTSD.
Yeah.
You know, about 2 years ago, let's see, I guess it was 23. Towards the end of the year, I was I think I told you this. I got made fun of for it, but I started having all these jaw issues, like to the point that I thought maybe I have like cancer in my jaw. I mean, it was really bad, really painful. Yeah. And so I go to the dentist, and the dentist is just like, he's like, yeah, you're actually clenching your jaw so hard you've sprained all the muscles in your face. Told my buddies that.
You never told me this. I would have totally made fun of you.
Oh, that's why I didn't tell him.
Remember circles?
That's right.
Yeah, there's one section.
Yeah. I told some buddies as soon as it's half out of my mouth, I'm like, I'm going to pay the piper for this. Right? But yeah, you know, so all of a sudden it's like all the hard work for at the time 20 years you're looking at and you're like, this is really, really hard. And we're on to the next year, and my wife looks at me and she's just like, starts having like PTSD. Yeah. Like, could you start seeing the markers of what happened before? I'm like, hey, we're not the same people. We have better skill sets. But it was still like, you see the hard stuff coming down. It's like, all right, buckle down. Here we go.
So when you got out of it, did you kind of intentionally grow that to 30 agents and as big as it is, or did it kind of happen? Because I would seem like mine, and I'm still a little bit in it, getting out. I'm like, I don't want to grow anything. Like, I want to grow the things I control. And I said, I want to make development big because I can control that with a few people. And I think my natural inclination is like to avoid that, because then all of a sudden that's 30 payrolls.
Yeah.
That's office leases. That's all these things that I'm like facing down the barrel of the gun. But obviously you went out and kind of built it. Was there an intention to build it, or just kind of?
It's a good question, and I think it was probably mixed intentions. Okay. So there's a part of it that maybe you could say a healthy business just grows as big as it needs to. Right? Like if you're doing healthy things, it actually just continues to grow. Yeah. So I think there was an element of that. There was this other element of, along with the mission of wanting to build people, that I needed more people that then could go multiply. Okay.
See, it's your mission that's the problem, Reed.
Yeah. That's right. Tone the mission back a little.
Trying to help too many people.
Yeah, because so you need to, if you want to propagate a message, you have to have other people that don't just hear it, but it actually changes their life, and they start kind of propagating that message by the way they live.
It's real. You're bringing reality to that mission.
And have you had many that have then, like, I'm going to call them a mini you, that have taken your message and grown it?
Yeah. I have probably a third of the company has been with me for over 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they're people that you could say embody like what we've built. And then expanding that out into consulting and other things just to be able to reach more people. It's been really good. Yeah. But kind of to your point, I think one of the maturing pieces is when we've started doing other ventures, like Keith and I built out a company, is you wake up one day and you realize how magical is it to have a company that works on as few of people as possible, right? As simple as possible.
Like a podcast you just show up to.
Yeah, and
they're not making any money.
No. That's our sponsor.
That's right.
Request.
But there's a lot of fatigue in that. And so I think that looking around now, like the idea to go build another huge number of bodied company, that's not so great.
Yeah, because one of the ones I missed, and this was just my own naivety, again, immaturity, ego, probably throw all those in. But one of them was I had found such success in it that I wanted to bring everyone with me. And so then I brought them into deals, or I put them into these things. And in my head, I knew the risk of, hey, if it doesn't go, we're going to refund, we're going to do whatever. But none of them did. Yeah. And my expectation was, you'll dive in with me, you'll go learn it, we'll do it. And then guess what? We're going to grow it. And then I realized that was not the case. And so I had a mentor. I'm calling them all mentors now after the last episode.
Yeah, the last episode we were talking about. All mentors now. Well, it was only funny because Bobby said, what do you say? He's a clinical psychologist or something like that. He was talking about his mentor. I was like, I call all my therapist mentors now.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, my mentor says,
Yeah. Well, I said,
Keith,
okay.
have you tried not being so much like you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I was like, so I was telling him my new game plan. I like it. It's a really good one. And I said, and then what I'm going to do is then I'll have this box for investors that I can then bring back in. He goes, why would you do that? He goes, what? Take that out of you don't need it. He goes, why do you even put that in there anymore?
Yeah.
He goes, you're better off throwing a massive Brick West party for them every year than trying to level up to that point again. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He goes, because look at it, right? When you're what you're risking, you're built to risk that. You know the risk. You know what you're getting into. And he goes, so you're better off giving back to the community than bringing people with me to do
with
it.
Me too, because a lot of the people that I'm,
and it was the craziest thing. And so I had this box. It was this cool pyramid. I was so excited. I had this box for investors, and I said, I finally have a way. I'm going to get everyone caught up, paid back. And then once I do, then I can bring kind of them back in. And he just was like, he just stopped me. He's like, nope. And then he just goes, exit out. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And he goes, well, your model doesn't need investors. So he goes, why don't you just go make as much and then let God let you send it out to them?
Yeah.
And maybe it's if they're teachers, sponsor their school. If they're in ministry, help the church. If they're the community, go do that. And it, like, for the first time hit me, I'm like, maybe I've been building this mission around the wrong part.
Yeah.
And it just was the very first time, and I was like, yeah, that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Because I can wake up to this risk every day, but I can talk to banks every day. I can do the things I can dehumanize, but it's the friends, it's the people closest where I'm like, that's what hurts me every day.
Yeah.
But if it's the bank, I think I just negotiate another one where they took some more off or got me 6 more months, right? And so you can kind of work with that as long as you have a plan. And I think that was for the first time, it was like this real picture of, is my mission really helping people, or how do you manifest that mission?
Yeah.
When I know my personality, as soon as Keith gives me money, that's coming back somehow.
Yeah.
Whether it kills me to get it there, it's coming back, right?
Yeah.
And then I get money from the banks. I'm like, I want to get it back, but you know the asset, you know the risk, you know what you're giving, right? And I feel like that for me was a big aha moment of what my next endeavors will look like.
Yeah.
Well, and I learned this lesson in business, and we probably all have. And then just for our listeners or whatever, I mean, I don't know if you haven't learned this lesson, this is a good one. But
It's
you
coming.
can be
If
so
you haven't learned it, it's coming.
You can be so excited about something and passionate about something that you want to then enroll the people that you love and care about in your life in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you fail to realize is that you are passionate about it and love it. So when something's not so good or goes south, you're willing to grit through that. Yeah. They're just going, I'm only in this, Jordan, because you said it was awesome and fun, and now it sucks. And by the way, I never asked for this shit, right?
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is I learned this, but I learned at a very young age of, I remember me and my cousins got into some tomfoolery, and we got in trouble by our parents. And I remember my dad pulling me aside and being like, and maybe a lot of people, but he was like, hey, these are your little cousins. Like, they're not you. Like, they're not as strong as you. They're not as physical, right? And we were just doing some stupid stuff as kids. But it's like, I put, their lives or potentially their well-being in danger because I was like, hey, follow me.
Sure.
We're going to go run through the cow pasture and try to tick this steer over.
Yeah. And
then my dad's like, you idiot, right? And by the way, if you get kicked in the head, right, it's one of those things where, but I don't think we look at, physical harm is one thing, but I don't think we look at like business that way.
Yeah.
Necessarily,
I think
right?
you should.
Like, I'm inviting you on a 14-mile hike tomorrow. Well, like for me, that's a walk in the park. For you, that might kill you. Yeah. Right? Or can I carry you out 7 miles? Or, you know what I mean? And like those kind of things in business.
It's probably the best analogy.
Right.
That's what you end up doing. So then you're carrying that for 7 miles because you promised them a 14-mile journey.
Did you get it? But can you carry 3 people? Yeah. Can you carry 5 people? Can you carry 10 people?
The buckling at the knees part, right? It's just the weight you use. You can keep stacking until you can.
It's one of the, probably looking back, one of the more immature ways that I've tried to build and develop people, which is trying to help them build and develop in ways that are good for them. And maybe even verbally they say that they want, but their actions don't show it, right? I mean, you have, even just like if you zoom out, you have these structures, right? You have accredited investors, you have sophisticated investors, and you have people that don't meet either of those criteria, right? and you have people who are pissed because they don't meet any of those criteria, so they don't get any opportunity. And you have somebody who jumps up to being accredited or sophisticated, and so, but some people still say no because you have to meet this bar. And it's like, well, why does all that exist? Well, it exists because people like you that have all this desire to do this thing, as soon as crap goes sideways, are going to like just come unglued. Yeah. Not everybody, but 9 out of 10. And so you try creating, opportunity across the whole board of all those, but just kind of as an example. And that's that's been one of the harder things about, creating opportunity for people. And then what you meant as a blessing, what you meant as a gift, becomes this other thing. And I think there's this level of wisdom of like, I do want this for you. And I'm not going to give this to you, or I'm not going to create this opportunity for you. And it doesn't feel loving right now. And maybe it never will, but I promise you it is. Even if that's just us sharing a loving relationship into the future instead of you wanting my head on a platter.
Yeah, because it's crazy. I think through in the depths of it, and you probably had this point as well, but I was like, I know enough guys that could have just written me the check.
Yeah.
And there was points I got desperate enough where I asked them, and they always said no, obviously. And at the time, I was like, man, I'm going to definitely do that for the Jordan who comes to me when they're going through this, because I can resonate. And then as I'm kind of moving through it, the back to the light at the end, like a lot of projects are coming together. And I was like, gosh, probably the best thing that happened to me was they didn't write the check.
Yeah.
Like might be the title of my new book when I go through all this of like, don't write the check, right? Because there's lessons learned in that, and everybody going through on either side of it is learning a lesson. Your hope is you don't wreck the relationships, you don't wreck that, but it's just money has that power. It has that ability.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. I'm not saying never do a partnership. I'm not saying never do that stuff, but it's just, to your point, finding the right partnership, I think makes all the difference in the world. So, because in my world, like on yours, you grew to 30. I'm like, I might scale back to where I do a project every 3 years. And it's just with my funds.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to answer anybody. If it goes, it goes. It's just all on me. But
but I'm reminiscent of like a time when Jordan, you were like, what are you doing next? And I'm like, bro, I'm gonna fade into the abyss, bro. I'm going into the black. Like, I'm gonna go hunting and fishing. And you were like, you can't do that.
I still remember that
and
one.
And then like 3 months later, I'm calling Jordan like, you want to do a podcast together? But like,
it's so true.
So like, I hear Jordan right now being like, you know what? I'm just gonna scale back.
I'm in the grocery store hungry, right? So
yes.
That obviously sounds really, and even me, I'm trying to think through that part, and it's like, goal one, get caught back up, because I wouldn't sleep well. I don't sleep well until that's done. And then after that, it's like, but now intentionally build it. And it's just funny how, because of that part where I want to keep helping people, that was the first one. And so I'm like building these like boxes of like, nope, if it's real estate, it's a wealth tool. So I'm only going to take money I make in another business, and that's what I'm going to use to buy real estate. And try to build those. But it's because I think naturally I'd be like, all of a sudden you're going to get 3 years past this. What's going to happen? There's no new housing inventory. We're in a market that has continuous in migration. Yeah. Apartments are going to be worth 260, 270, 280. I'm going to get back on that train. It'll be like, man, we could do 2 deals though. Yeah. If I just had the funds, if I just go out. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know if it's a vlog journal that I can watch, right? That's just, what's that, 50 First Dates? When I wake up in the morning and I watch it, like, remember
like,
Jordan.
Hey, remember
what is another, and I just remember hitting this point, even before it, it would just hit a point where more wasn't more anymore. And I really thinking where I'm like, if let's say I add a 100-unit apartment building, my life doesn't change. It only adds a responsibility piece now.
Yeah.
And so it's not like growing my life. It doesn't make my daughter's life better. It doesn't make my wife's life better. And I think that's where it kind of hit me. It was just the machine was full tilt at that point.
Yeah.
And so you're not stopping it at that point. But I was just like, how do you let somebody run with the steam I had, but cautionary enough to slow down at the right time?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer to that one, but that's kind of where I'm like always trying to figure out.
That's why we invited you here, Reed. So answer, please.
Go fish.
Because like your point, you've been up to 30, but you probably could go to 60, 70. Like, are there metrics now, having gone through it, that you apply?
I think what he's asking, to some extent, and I'd be interested too, is like, how do you choose when and how to scale?
Yeah.
And are you at where you currently are with the level of success you are, basically organically, and maybe by circumstance or happenstance or just evolution? Or are you here intentionally? Or like, where are you going in the next 3 to 5 years? And is that intentional, or is it just more like, no, I'm going to keep doing the same thing, and I'm going to see where the cards fall, but I know I'm going to keep these values, or do it this way?
Yeah, no, good question. So no, we're intentionally working on growing. But we've always been pretty intentional about the type of person that we want to be in business with. And so that's created a heavy lift when it comes to growing. But
This is why we only go to the gym together.
yeah, that's right.
Sweet Jim, huh?
Yeah. So Jim Collins wrote a book, How the Mighty Fall.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Right, a really good book.
I don't think I've read that one. he wrote Good to Great,
Yeah.
Great by
Yeah.
Choice.
Great by
right?
Choice.
I don't think
It's a
I've
great
read
book.
How
It's a
the
little
Mighty
scary,
Fall.
Yeah.
right? But
It's a cautionary tale.
it's a cautionary tale, right?
So part of me is like, I haven't read it. The other part of me is like, am I just going to read it and be like,
No, you'll just start seeing the signs of like what leads to that.
Yeah.
That the cliffs. What leads to the cliffs as you're getting close.
Yeah, one of them I think is like the third one is undisciplined or unbridled growth. And I think that I'm so wired to want to grow and build and do the next thing and like push forward, and like I'm never happy until I'm like climbing the next hill, that there's a level of a lack of discipline that looks like discipline.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm talking to somebody who's not driven and doesn't want to build anything, I'm like, you need the discipline. You go build crap. But there's a level of lack of discipline of looking around being like, hey, is this now unhealthy? Is this now unbalanced? Is this, am I building a mushroom?
Yeah.
And so we track everything. Everything's metrics, and we're paying attention to all that because we want to track all kinds of different health metrics as well as like the KPIs for the business. Yeah. That's something we've grown into because we've mushroomed from time to time, and then again, real estate, it's not surgery, right? So the consequences for some decisions in real estate aren't as big. Yeah. They may feel that way.
Yeah, interesting.
Who checks Reed?
Yeah.
Good question. So I have a couple. So I'll give you the vague answer, and then I'll give you a specific one. So the vague answer is I have a coach. A well-paid, very, very good coach that he checks me. But one of the decisions that I made in my business a long time ago was along the lines of, I think the book Rocket Fuel talks about the integrator, the visionary integrator relationship in a business, right? EOS system came from that, traction, all that. And one of the things that they said in there that I really took to heart was that the challenge with a visionary integrator relationship is that the visionary is prone to actually doing destructive things that actually kind of destroy the business, right? And the integrator is this person that's the buffer between the visionary and the business. And as a result, because this person's actually the responsible party, they have to have the final say. And so as a visionary, you have to voluntarily give the final say to that person. Way easier said than done. But Annie actually has
I'm going to give them the say until they tell me no.
Yeah,
and then I'm going to revoke that power.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It is revocable.
Good luck trying that.
Yeah. But so I have two business partners, Annie and Blake, and the way that we go about making decisions is pretty collaborative. And when it comes to operating the business, Annie actually has the veto power. And I would say that like that's an area of trust and vulnerability that, after 10 years of relationship, her and I fight like brothers and sisters. I mean, like, I don't fight with anybody the way I fight with Annie.
It's good.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's not. It sucks. It's actually the worst.
It's a good check anyway. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have these knockdown, drag-out fights, and I've had her and Blake say some things to me that are really hard to hear and demonstrate a pretty tremendous amount of love, right? When you have somebody who you could technically fire that will sit you down and say, I need to tell you something hard about the way you're showing up.
Yeah.
And then they say things that you really don't want to hear and maybe are really... I don't know if you ever experienced that, but when somebody tells you the truth at a level that, it's so deep and you're just like... that is dark and ugly, and that is definitely inside of me. Like, that's not fun. Yeah. So Annie ends up being probably the biggest check in the business. Because of that, though, she doesn't. I don't roll over easy, right? So we'll do knockdown, drag outs, and the reality is like there are times where we'll both be going at it, and she has a level of humility that we're going at it, and she's pissed at me, I'm pissed at her, and we're at each other's throats, and all of a sudden she'll sit there and she looks back and she goes, "You're right," right. doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah.
But the ability for two people to like absolutely go at it and then end up in a position where like, you know, I still want to strangle you, but you're right, so we'll do it that way. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is funny because that's me and my brother Joel, and I think there's a huge opportunity for growth on the business side from a management probably standpoint, just with some aging out, our ability, some liquidity, ability to buy them. But it was funny because I think we'll actually be better positioned to do it now. Because before, I don't think he actually had the technical side. But now that we've gone through the battle scars and the trenches of this thing together, like I feel like it actually made us stronger as a team to weather pretty much anything. And it's one of those because by the time I can get convincing on what I'm doing, and then when it's working, it's hard to say no. And so there were some decisions where I know if we look back on them now, Joel would have been like, I knew I should have just said no.
Yeah.
Like, why are we expanding to Colville? I don't know. It made sense at the time.
Yeah, I woke up and I was excited about it.
Right?
Let's go.
And I think we both now understand each other, not from a sibling relationship, but almost from that operator, that integrator, visionary. Because we did the EOS, we do a bunch of that. But the issue was I had so much influence as a visionary across it because I was generating most of the revenue.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just that piece where it's funny going through this now on the other side where I'm like, I think now we're built to go another 40 years.
Yeah.
Because that respect through it. And I think it's hard to, anyways, all I'm saying is hard to find a partner that can compete at that level.
Very
because
hard.
you're a visionary for a reason.
Yeah, and they usually dissolve because there is so much friction and conflict that they can't withstand that. But that's the tension that makes it beautiful.
Correct. And that's why, agreed. And so, congrats, man. That's a tough one to find.
I had a coach one time. He was trying to help me understand how the way that I was showing up was not ideal for the company. And
nicely put.
He's an old codger, and he's like, you know, buddy, when you're driving a sports car and it's just you or one other person in the car, and you rip around corners and you spin around, it's really fun, isn't it? I'm like, oh yeah, like that's great, right? He's like, yeah, you're just ripping around the cones, all that stuff. He's great. He's like, you're not driving a sports car anymore. You're driving a bus, and when you drive like this, everybody in the back of the bus is having a really bad experience. And I'm like,
too long to write
Is that
down.
Mike?
That's really
Tell
good.
me that was Mike Fleming. Was it Mike?
no, Glenn Neely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I sat there and I just thought, he's like, and this is why you have to, like, you have to defer this because Annie is not driving like an idiot. Like she drives this bus really, really well. Right. So I get to go be mad scientist because I still got to rip around the corners. I got to go do all that
you
stuff.
sent me out front doing it.
Yeah, I need to be able to do that, but I'm in a pace car. Right, like I'm out by myself doing my thing, but everybody in the bus needs a driver that's going to be reasonable.
Do you ever get frustrated when the bus drives slowly?
No, all the time is the worst. Right? Yeah.
Because I feel like, you're still in a sports car driving that far ahead, and then you're like, you land the sweet turn, and you're like, look, and there you can't even see it.
What's going on?
I feel like sometimes with it, and you're to that point, that was my hardest lesson, because I moved relatively quick. Like, hey, I like that building, let's put an offer, let's close, and then move. And then they're like, well, we don't have management in. How are we going to do the DD? What are we doing here? And it's like a lot of the systems, especially in real estate, require that.
They do.
Slowing down of the sports car.
They do, and they require. And another thing there would be, it's hard to turn a bus around. And so I'm used to like, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea, that's a bad idea, and you just keep turning the car around. But when you take 20, 30, 40, 50 people down the wrong road, and then you do it again tomorrow and the next day, like you got a problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm going down all the wrong roads, scouting things out, and Annie's like, I'm going this way until like one of your ideas is actually good.
Yeah. How does she vet if your idea is good? Do you have like a decision matrix that you guys use, or
we do,
or timing?
So we have a couple of them. One is a discipline that we've learned. We do what we call sprint planning. So we do annual business planning every 3 months. So you can say it's a fancy way of saying quarterly business planning. There's a level of that, but we actually reset and restart every 3 months. So if you were ahead...
But you make the plan for the whole year or the quarter?
For 3 years.
3-year plan.
3-year plan.
Adjust it every 3 months.
And then we adjust it every 3 months.
Got it.
And if you're behind, as soon as you roll in, it's over. If you're ahead, congratulations, you don't get to carry that over. Yeah. So every 3 months, we revisit it.
Scorecard resets.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing that resets is it is a discipline to not change the business plan. So if you set a year-out business plan and you start coming up with mad science ideas, or your business plan's crap, because it usually is, because it's hard to do your annual business plan, then you have this tendency to just keep trying new things. Yeah. For us, once we establish the business plan and Reed goes mad scientist, it's it's like, hey, that's awesome. Well, let's revisit that in 3 months and see if that's still the right way to go. So even if I'm all over the map, I don't get the right to actually step in and change the business plan unless there's some egregious thing that we missed, right? Like sky falls. Yeah. So the fact that every decision has some level of seasoning to it, right? That helps.
Yeah, because we jumped pretty heavy into the short-term rental game, management of it, and it almost killed our company.
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
so hard. Again, but in my head, I'm like, we're never going to get the rents enough. Like, this has to be a version of the future. Well, it's not going to be 100% of them, but 10% of a building or something. And it almost killed us because we're a long-term, large property management company.
Yeah.
Trying to run hotels.
Oh my gosh.
And so I agree. That would have been a good one to kind of pivot to. Every 3 months. And so then you have a business plan, meaning you have the outline, and then you just can't go change any of the big stuff.
Yeah.
And then you reassess each time.
Just reassess it. How, did that work? Was it the right things? What do we do next? And then we're always thinking the next 3 month block ahead, because there's things that you're not going to be able to calculate in this 3 months, but you have to be able to build for in the future.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years. So I love what I do. And so I see myself still owning the real estate company, having a sizable number of actual coaches and consultants inside the consulting firm. Just passionate about the way that we go about doing business there. And we have, so my wife and I have kind of a 1x, 2x, 10x type what we call ABRR, asset-based recurring revenue, because the passive income is just kind of a crap term.
It's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
No, so
Go speak for yourself. I don't know, whatever. Call it whatever you want.
Keith calls it passive income, but if you ever watch this guy work, there's nothing passive about it.
The day he stops hauling a dump trailer, I'll believe it's passive income.
Exactly.
Yeah, but anyways, we're not getting into this.
So
The income itself is passive. What I do on a daily basis is move other boulders.
I'll save that for the next Q&A. I feel like I want to dive into that a little more, but
it's like
still don't agree. But
yeah. Anyway, so we set this plan of, for the recurring revenue that we have from assets, we wanted to hit 1x of what our monthly costs are.
Yeah, there you go.
Right,
there
and
you
then
go.
we wanted to hit our lifestyle goal, and then we wanted to hit a substantially higher number that gives us the amount of money to give and to do all kinds of things. And so in 5 years, we should be somewhere between that second step and maybe a third of the way to the third step is where we're looking for.
Nice. And so as you're planning kind of growth and all those pieces, you have your business plans, but they're all in the framework of this 1x, 2x, 10x. Is that kind of what drives the ship there?
Yeah, it's...
Is it like if the 10x happens, that's great, and then the business is going to grow how we want it to? Or is it, hey, I want to get to 10x, and so I'm going to position my business or my purchases or whatever it looks like that way?
So the business is excluded from all of that.
Okay. So that's just separate.
Yeah, it's
mostly rental properties or just different forms of...
Yeah,
okay.
mostly rental properties. We have some money that's out as hard money with a company. We have some money in the oil industry.
Yeah.
Some different things like that.
After watching Landman, of course.
Yeah, no, before, but
man. I almost want to get in the
but I
oil
want to be
industry after that.
I want to be Billy Bob
I'd
Thornton.
be pivoting in the 1 month. But if you ever go down to that part, it is a desolate country, man.
Oh, I don't want to live in Midland, Texas.
No, thank you.
So anyway,
that's cool.
So that's the goal. Is everything we do in business is really to make sure that money is not just being burnt up.
Yep.
The gig.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
I love these conversations because everybody has their own style. Like the fundamental lessons, I feel like are very universal, but everybody has their own style. Reed is one of like the best business people I probably know, as far as like the fundamentals, the plans, the consistency, the working with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And so it's like, I love it. I'm jealous of it. I can never do it. Right. But at the same time, I have my own style, right?
Yeah,
I have my style, you have your style, but it's interesting to see these overlaps. I think back to the quote, a mentor of mine told me one time, he said, Keith, success is simple. It's just not easy.
Yeah.
Right. And I think over time, I've learned that some of the best business people that I know, it's like, well, success is not necessarily simple, but kind of simple, but it's also boring.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like not sexy, not sports car-y, it's like doing the same stuff over and over, consistent growth, steady growth, stable growth, minimize risks, right? And for the entrepreneurial spirit for the people who tend to charge into business and actually can create amazing businesses and have a ton of success and do this. It also it can also end up being their Achilles heel.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Because it's like the fun, sexy, energetic
The shiny object, man.
is
Pulls you in.
the same reason that everybody looks and is like, yeah, I want on that.
Yeah.
I want on Reed's bus, man. That's a party bus. And then later they're like, dude, you drive like a jerk, right? Like it's points.
Yes,
You're like, well,
totally.
you got on.
Every
I
the back
told
is
you,
whiplash.
right? But this is balance, right? This is balance. And what I think that Reed has done really well is surround himself with people who accent behaviors and skill sets that you don't necessarily possess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And why that's hard, and you can fight like cats and dogs or butt heads. It's really actually the glue that allows this to keep moving forward in such a great way. Is because it's like, oh, you got Annie, you got Blake, you got Reed, and like each of these people is different in their own right, but they play their own roles. They kind of stay in their world. They collide where they collide. But it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think the reason I'd ask that question, because one of my goals is to obviously get through this part, build up that empire, and then I want to ultimately by 50 just go help businesses. And so like when you look on the outside, looking at what I do, half of it seems crazy, but for me, I'm just trying to learn how businesses operate.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes understanding your goal or what you're shooting for, like somebody will look at me like, oh, you completely missed. I said, no, I've learned 7 different ways a business shouldn't do something. And that's going to help me when I go invest $10 million in a business one day. And so I think sometimes that goal, so then my decision base is going to be now based around, does this give me an opportunity to learn? So like the podcast for me is like, all right, what if I did this? What if this thing goes 10 years and I've learned now?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
500 interviews. That's 500 people where I can ask the literal questions how to do it. And then now I'm funding a startup and they need some help. And so I think sometimes that goal piece, I just always figure out what does the tail wag the dog wag the tail piece. But in my world, I found that I chase it and it seems crazy, but it's like that belief or that objective. I've never put a
You chase the dog or the tail?
I know. I don't know. I didn't know I was saying that, so I brushed over it. Is it tail wags the dog? Dog wags the tail. It's the idea is that does the goal drive the decisions, or do my decisions drive and lead to my goal? And I think in my world, it's always been that. It was just I just didn't put enough weight on what do they call it? It's not collateral damage. No, it's collateral damage, but it's like the shrapnel.
There's something about I didn't enjoy this or respect it when I was a younger person. Is when you'd hear an older man say something that was like, you felt like it threw water on your fire. Yeah. And you look back and you're like, oh, and that was actually wisdom. That was like, young man, I want to help you not do all the hard things I did. Yeah. And so, when you go through lots of hardships, lots of business failures and successes, there's kind of this thing that pops in your head when you're talking to somebody. It's like, you could do that. Or right, like in your mind, like you're just like, I can't just tell you no because you're not going to listen, but just say, that's one way you could do this. Are you considering other options?
Oh yeah,
All right.
Yeah, like the soccer team. I think 9 out of 10 people told me not to do that. And not
The
looking
soccer
back,
team?
And I was like, well, but I like it. And then in my head, I'm like, but it's also a startup business, which will give me access to these kind of opportunities. I got to now go meet with venture capital firms that are raising funds for it. And so that's what made it hard. But the downside, anyways, what I was getting to, the downside of having that is I can justify everything.
Oh yeah,
like there's no barrier because it's like
I buy my own BS.
Jordan, you shouldn't go buy Zola. Well, but if I buy Zola, I'll learn how a restaurant operates, and then I'll be able to do it. And it's just those pieces that
and going
trying
down
to figure out how to provide better framework. Because I'm a little more like you. You sound really consistent. I'm more like my brother, where he wakes up at 4, he's in the office by 6:30. He sends out this video every. I don't remember the day, but I think it's every Tuesday. It's called The Forecast. And he sends it out every time. He'd be in the hospital sending that thing out.
I've become pretty consistent, but one of the things I always tell people is anything you see in my life that's consistent has been a knockdown, drag out fight. Like consistency has always been my arch nemesis. Yeah. But there's different reasons we talk about things, right? Like when somebody's passionate about something because they're on the journey, they're going to talk about it. Yeah. When they've mastered it, they're going to talk about it. When it's their Achilles heel, it's their demon, they're going to talk about it. That's it. Like consistency is one of those things that anything that I'm consistent in has just been nothing but years of just like fighting, and then you have a little breakthrough, right? But that's the thing is like, if it took me 5 years to figure out how to wake up early or some stupid thing like that, it was worth the fight because then over the course of time, like consistency breeds consistency, and now I would say it's my biggest advocate, even though it's still my arch nemesis.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think on the real estate market? Rates, growth, more inventory? Crystal ball effect.
Crystal ball. Crystal ball is
It's the snow globe. Shake it.
exactly.
the snow
Been for
globe.
snow globe for a while now.
Yeah, the was it the Magic 8 Ball?
Magic 8 Ball.
Yes.
That's funny.
Results.
Decidedly so.
Results may
Don't
vary.
know.
Yeah. So
Try
probably
again.
just a contrast piece is I want to say that like 3.8 million homes sold last year, residential real estate across the country, which is about $200,000 fewer homes than what was thought to be the baseline.
Yeah.
Right.
4 million.
Yeah, 4 million. And so
200,000 homes.
Yeah,
Yes, correct.
yeah.
Sorry.
did I say that?
Here's a
said
$200,000,
dollars.
but
Well,
200,000
yeah,
homes
200,000
less than what
homes
they
less.
thought
Yeah,
baseline
yeah,
would be,
yeah,
right?
yeah, the general is the mustache through us.
This is the mustache. He was talking on my behalf. I gotta train him better.
Gotta blame anytime it goes wrong. It's the mustache. It's Charlie.
It's Charlie. It's Charlie. Yeah. So looking at Goldman Sachs's forecast for this year, it's 4.2, and some other forecasts are up to 4.5, which is still below like the median.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty significant change. You go from 3.8 to 4.2 or 4.5. That's going to feel for those of us who are in the industry like it's a pretty gigantic leap.
Yeah, it's like 20%.
Yeah. So I think that's really positive because the people who have been just grinding and figuring out how to take market share in the interim are going to experience that upside.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked about that. We'll see about interest rates. I'm certainly not an economist by any stretch of the imagination. Tariffs are just a very interesting, maybe not unknown, but pretty unfamiliar territory. It feels like, and so how the Fed's going to react to that over time this year.
Yeah, but I mean,
don't know.
I'm sure it just stifles supply, which increases demand, right? If you're gonna have less building,
Increases demand, increases cost, which
That's
in
what I mean, which
theory should
decreases
lower
build, yeah.
should lower rates.
Should lower rates, but there's still this gap right between the Fed rate and what mortgage rates are because of the
10-year,
well, and even just the fact that they've decoupled over the last couple of years because there's a level of uncertainty, and so like that's kind of what I'm thinking about is regardless of what the rate does the uncertainty stay?
Yeah.
Banks make the spread, and consumers don't really make
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's what my crystal ball is leaning towards until it hits a recession. And again, I think everything's recession is a bad word, which it's not good, but it doesn't mean your values go down. It doesn't mean it's just we grew up at least I grew up in the Great Recession, right? So the word resembles a depression, and so that's kind of what we're looking at. Is we're still building some multifamily, but we're basing it off the lack of starts. So then we're looking at how many buildings are going in the ground.
Yeah.
Well, so then our play is a 3-year play because you're going to have the ones we're building now will be absorbed in a year. Nothing will be delivered the next year. Demand will then absorb those units, and then you're going to have rent bumps the next year. And so it's trying to figure out what metric, and that's multifamily. Sorry, not the residential housing, but like then you hear stats of like 74% of agents didn't sell a deal.
Yeah, it's
One
staggering.
transaction, and then
numbers.
The average age of a first-time home buyer now, 38. 38 years old. I was like, what if you're
You can almost buy your
career,
first house, Jordan.
What if you're just past it? Right? And you look at it and I'm like, geez, what if try doing what you're doing now if you couldn't have bought real estate?
Yeah.
I mean, most of what I've been able to do is because we were able to buy real estate at a decent price. And so
That's all I've been doing for 20 years. I don't know what I would have done.
or think of like, I think of people retiring right now and they have their house paid off. But like, what about a future of people that won't have that as an asset?
It's going to be interesting, right? And the we'll see with some of the large investment groups if that ever gets legislated.
Hopefully.
Right? Because they start sucking that away, and pretty soon you end up just the same way we are with everything else. We freaking rent all of our technology,
Correct.
right? And for that to be the way of the homeowner, that would be a bad day.
Yeah, you lose your middle class there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good insight. I think that's where biggest question I ever get is, are we facing a crash? And I'm like, that's such a loaded question.
Yeah.
So the reality is got to have more supply. We don't have enough.
I'm going to throw this out
buyers.
there, but what difference does a real estate crash make to most people? And I know that that's a broad question, but what I'm saying is, for me, real estate crash is a big deal.
Yeah.
But this is my career. I'm suitably tied in real estate. If I'm a farmer, or a coal miner, or a banker, I don't know, right? Like if I work at a hair salon, your daily bread and butter is like working in a hair salon. House is an asset of yours. So all you did is you had a stock that went down.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be like me saying like, oh man, if Tesla goes down, I'm screwed. It's like, well, no, it's just like small aspects. So I don't know, like a real estate crash to me, like I'm just as scared of the word recession or more scared of the word recession as as Johnny consumer, Johnny, you know, Jane Doe, John Doe, like a recession affects everybody. A real estate crash, trickle down effect maybe affects everybody, but it's just this one aspect of it. I think it's a big deal to us in the industry.
But it's also the same reason we all focus on gas prices. It's the easiest to understand. The reality is a crash is a net effect of 4 other categories. Unemployment would spike, therefore job losses hit. So then you're actually out.
Sure, you have the trickle down effect for sure.
Well,
It would affect everybody.
What I'm saying is we're putting crash at the top.
Yeah.
The crash is down here. All of those happen, and then a crash hits.
Yeah.
Are you talking about a real estate crash or recession?
Both, honestly. The recession will be caused because unemployment, oversupply. So like '08, too much supply and no demand.
Yep.
Triggered, right? And then
it wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been job loss.
Correct.
Like the
Correct.
whole
It would have been weathered.
the whole thing would have been weathered. Yeah, except for that one factor.
Yep. And so really what you're tracking is the external factor of job loss, but the issue is there isn't enough replacement. Like there's just not that factor. And then you're looking at foreclosures. So that'll be the next one. So you're triggering like because of that distress. But the other crazy one nobody's talking about is like everyone has so much equity that there likely won't be a foreclosure because you would then just sell the house.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know. I think everybody's waiting around for a crash to figure out a house.
I guess this is what I saw in 08, 09 when we were doing a bunch of short sales is everyone has so much equity. So people are like, I have, $60,000 equity in my house. So does everybody else. But now you're all going to want to sell your house at the same time, and now your house is going to be worth $60,000 less, and now you don't have equity. So it's weird to see how equity can be gobbled up like in thousands and thousands of dollar increments, even if you have it and you're like, oh, I would just sell my house. I have 70,000 plus. It's like, well, if your house goes down 25% and now you pay selling costs, that's a net zero.
Yeah, but the only way it's going down that far, like it did in '08, was there was the bank slap. You basically brought in, let's see, in Dava, right? We've been interviewed Bobby. He sells his cup of coffee for $5. All of a sudden, Starbucks comes in and says we're selling them for 50 cents. That's what happened. Banks took over large supplies, discounted the value. So now you're running comps, and I just bought this house for $38,000, and you need $300,000, and they just got them off the books.
I think it started well before that. I think it started with fraud, right?
Started
with the mortgage-backed security.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, if you go all the way upstream.
All the way up, it's like that's what ticked it, and then the downfall was
Actually, I would
one more step.
I would argue that it's another step, and it was government policy.
Yes.
And the government policy
and lending lacks.
So government policy, freaking government. The government policy dictates the culture in which banks have to operate. Yeah. So if banks have really good banks are obscenely conservative organizations that hate risk. And drive me crazy for all those reasons. So what happens is they have a competitive space that has a level of risk that they're all happy with. And now the government comes in and they say like, hey, we want X amount of new homeowners. We want to extend homeownership way beyond the group of people who are stable and secure enough to be able to have this. So we're going to change this whole thing. And so now the banks are sitting here like a group of like ducks huddled in a corner, and they realize they actually, to be able to compete, they're going to have to go out and they're going to have to make all of these concessions and changes really to match what the government wants.
And then the government will buy it from them, so they're like incentivized to do it, right?
So in other words, if you stay here, you die because you cannot compete if other people are going to go out in this other space, and somebody's going to have to go out in this other space. And so as soon as the banks started going out in the space that the government actually created to incentivize, I forget the percentages, but way more home ownership than was reasonable, the banks did that. And then the lax environment started creating an environment for all the fraud and everything else. And then, of course, it was the bank's fault. But
but just so cleaned it up. So now over the last 10 years, it's hard to get a loan. And so you just won't have that same spike. And so what you're looking for is huge job loss.
Yeah, there was a book, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but they talk about, and I've always heeded this in the sense of when you look at all the major economic downturns, though, it's never any of the things we're talking about, right? Like, no one saw COVID, right? Like no one would have written that down. They'd been like, well, if unemployment goes here, if this goes here,
economics
of COVID, or it talks about the black swan events.
The black swan events, right? It's the Chernobyl meltdown. It's COVID. It's the 9/11
so
tower.
You got to separate the two, though. You got to separate the two. Like, right, a COVID, you got to separate the economic from the other, right? You could have predicted. Like, watch The Big Short. They're like, at this trajectory, this will do this, right? There's an economic piece to what the recession did. Black Friday, those kind of things. They call it Black Swan, but like the Chernobyl, you're not predicting some of those things. So Black Swan is isolated to like a catastrophe, but like the financial piece it was a matter of time until it hit, right? And that's why that movie's really good actors in it.
Well, but if they wouldn't have fraudulently created
that's what I'm saying. So
the mortgage-backed securities,
intentionally
right? So
created.
Like, I don't know that you could predict it unless you knew the fraud was happening.
Or you knew that the loans they were putting in those together. Like if you watch The Big Short, they knew that's why they bet against it.
Well,
versus COVID, it's not like you're sitting there like, this.
But that wasn't
March.
common. That wasn't common knowledge.
What's Anthony Fauci?
Well, it was if you looked into it. It's just to your point. It's like the average person won't.
Yeah.
Like the average person is not going to dive in and look at that because you're like, nope, it's a house. Everyone has them. We keep buying them. Market keeps going up. How could it not?
Yeah.
And then it hits. But I think it's hard part is how do you underwrite that? Like if you underwrite to a Black Swan event, you'll never buy a property.
There's this other really interesting. Do you guys know who Morgan Housel is? He wrote The Psychology of Money.
Oh yeah,
Great book. We had him as a guest for one of our for an event that we did. Keith and I did. He doesn't remember.
I remember. I was on. It was during COVID. I was there.
Oh, it was during COVID. Yeah, that's
good.
So it was interesting
Zoom
because
call.
one of the things that he said was our financial system and institutions are actually extremely young, and everybody acts like we understand everything about this.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that maybe something like the Great Depression might not ever happen again, or maybe even the Great Recession, is that at the time there wasn't even enough knowledge to understand how to correct that. And even now, over the course of maybe 6,000-ish years of human history, we have a few hundred years of these kind of systems. It's kind of like almost in a morbid way if you look at how some people groups can't absorb alcohol because they don't have thousands of years of history of absorbing alcohol. Think about how many things we are learning at a rapid pace around how economics work because the system is just not very old.
Yeah, and you're reacting, right? So then it happens. So you're going to build a guard.
Yeah.
And then you're going to find a hole in that guard because that's what humans can do, right? And so then you're just constantly evolving it. But to that point, you would have fixed the Great Depression even sooner.
Yeah. Yep.
It just wasn't, the technology wasn't there, the pieces weren't there, and we had a better back security then. So it's super interesting. But I think that's kind of the stuff that makes it interesting on real estate play. Of like it was just a sweet stretch there of 8 years where you could get income and wealth. Now, it's not. You get one. You're either flipping the property for an income, or it's a wealth building tool that you should be saving the money that you do make to fix the roof, to fix the whatever it is. So
I think my point was more of like there are a lot of this you can pay attention and you have control over or insight into, and then there's also these Black Swan events that more than likely are going to occur in your lifetime, and those are just going to fall out. Those are going to play out however they play out. You can do everything right and go broke in 10 years.
Oh,
yes.
That's really what I'm getting at here. Is like you can be an idiot and get rich. Totally. I've seen it, right? And you can be very savvy, very intelligent, very diligent, very patient, all the proper things and go broke. Like it's not.
Oh yeah.
There's no guarantee.
No, it's all just risk tolerance, right? I mean, that's where you can de-risk some of it. You can try as much as you can, but to a certain point, it is what it is. Like, let's say you put it in a savings account. Well, inflation would have eaten away at it as if you lost it anyway.
Yeah.
You put it in the market. Market took a hit, right? So I think it's trying to find, hopefully over a bunch of these parts, is educating on the best ways to structure that 1, 2, 10, right? And I think for many people, they don't even know what their 10 is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like you have to figure out your 10 to then build your plan to then go get those pieces of it. But I also know when you do nothing, that's not an option either.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So, cool. So good.
Got to bring the fire.
That is the fire.
But it's going back to something Reed said early on. Just triggered that thought of like bringing the energy, right?
Yeah.
Like your environment matters. So showing up to like an office or a group of people where that they're focused or like. For me, I've always been a bring it guy.
Yeah,
right.
I
have to bring it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't in your world, especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner, is like if you so the gym that we work out at, I just know for Keith that I am going to work out more consistently and more often and get my butt out of bed when I don't feel like it because I've developed and built a peer group of people that I work out with. Is it necessary? No. Does it make my odds much better? And does it make it a little bit more enjoyable? Yes. Right.
Yeah.
So that's an area of Keith's life where Keith has decided I need people.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's an area of my life where like I just need to go bring the energy myself, right? Like no
Yeah.
one's going to be there. Matter of fact, they're going to be relying on me to bring it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I think as a business owner, like you have to be able to bring that, and get in, or you're doomed, right? Your success is now whimsical to the people that arbitrarily are around you or in your life.
Yeah, nobody gets to see what happens in my head before I walk into the office, like ready to go. Right,
Yeah.
I'm pulling up fears over here, self doubts over here. Right, the fact I didn't sleep really well is right in my face, and then you open the door and it's like, yeah, it's go time. Right? And people are like, you're always so. It's like no. Like I'm sitting back there like pulling the ripcord of that.
I just
like,
left that shit in the car.
Yeah, just like
That's so true.
It'll be there when I go back,
I just
trust
had
me.
a fight in the car, and there's blood everywhere, but it's in the car. Yeah,
I'm here.
and that's just how it is, right? Like sometimes it's that way every single day for a very, very long period of time. And you know, when it's hard, I have to process. You know, when I hear people talking and explaining all of the reasons that like I just want to be like, hey, you want to just plug into my brain and see if you can even survive like the chaos that I'm like gagging and binding and throwing in the closet. Like maybe you can, maybe you can't, right? But what you get to see is a result of lots of choice over lots of time.
What do you do when you have a down day? Like when you can't bring the energy?
Oh, one day a year, I
Stay in bed and cry.
yeah. One day a year, I am so toxic, I cannot be around people. Like,
Oh, what do you do?
I cancel everything. I stay home and I go on a walk and I just stay completely away from everybody. Like there's one day a year. It's been consistent for probably the last 5 years. I have bad days.
Is it the same day?
It's like
No.
you wake up and you're
I
just
was
like,
like, is
nope,
it your
today's the
birthday
day.
or
I wake up.
Today's the day.
I wake up and I'm like I'm fighting it, and it's just like, just everything, just this angry, and it's just horrible, and like everything's gonna set me off. And I just realize if I'm around anybody today, I'm just gonna say something I'm gonna regret, or that they're gonna regret, and I just like pull the ripcord. Right. I have a few days where I certainly have more than a few days where I'm not at my peak, but there's one day a year I just got to call an audible and be like, I'm out.
Take a day.
Yeah.
It's a read day. That's good.
It's a read day.
It's a read.
Write that down.
It's a mental health day.
Hey,
The
babe.
mentor recommended it.
Yeah.
Babe, I'm taking a read day.
Yeah. It's a real thing. There's doctors and everything. So
My mentor told me about it.
Yeah.
yeah, because I think that is one of the hardest ones, is continually showing up to the most thankless job in the world.
Well, and no
Like,
job
is
is ever without that. I feel like, right? Doesn't matter what you do. There's gonna be days you just don't want to do that thing. I don't know.
Yeah, but bringing energy is a little different. Like, 'cause it's you choose it, right?
Yeah.
In theory, you could go in every day and choose to bring that energy. I just think sometimes that grind of it gets a little harder. But it's so
for sure.
important, right? Because everything feeds off you. So that's all right. You can take the call. It's just live.
I know this. It's my bad. My bad. Timer going off. Random timer going off.
Oh, that's all right.
You want to freak a bunch of entrepreneurs out, put them in a room or a place where their phone's not supposed to go off, and then just set like a generic ringtone to go off in the middle, and everyone panics. Everybody's like, "Oh, is it mine?"
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
supposed
Do
to
you
be.
love being an entrepreneur?
That's
Is that your calling?
That's a great question. Do I love being an entrepreneur? I don't love the word.
Ooh, explain.
I think the word is oversaturated and carries this weight to it. Like it's almost like this moral imperative. Like if you're really a good whatever, you're an entrepreneur, which can be code, for broke and aimless.
No idea what I'm doing. I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I would. So
Funny.
So I got over my bitterness a while back around the word entrepreneur. But what I like to think is I'm a people builder, and businesses are people.
Oh, okay.
Right, businesses are just systems and structures of people to serve other people, right? And everything else is just kind of the supporting cast for that. So I love that. What I love, probably my passion, I guess what would probably classify me as an entrepreneur, is I love building things and getting them to a point that I can hand it off to somebody else for it to be their opportunity.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's kind of a death that comes to that. Like whenever you hand off your baby, it's kind of, there's a grieving period. It's like, oh, but that's what I'm made for.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was just looking at the definition of entrepreneur, but I don't know. Was it like French initially or something?
Sounds French.
That's French.
Like connoisseur.
Connoisseur, entrepreneur.
Yeah, I always just grew up as a distinction between that and running a small business, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I've always separated the two. Is one's more of a builder, the other's more of an operator or an
Yeah.
operation.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, but that's not necessarily true. That's just from my own interpretation. But like sometimes I actually don't like being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I just like designed to run fast. And so like if I had,
Yeah.
like, to your point, that system, the team, it's just the only space that worked for me was owning my own business.
Yeah, there's probably kind of a continuum between this idea of like an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur.
Yeah.
Right. And so like a pure entrepreneur, no structure, just building something out of thin air.
Correct.
Most people that call themselves entrepreneurs are working inside of somebody else's system, or they're going to go further faster having some sort of framework, all the way to somebody who acts like an entrepreneur, like they think on their feet, they make the quick decisions, all of that stuff, but they're deeply inside of somebody else's structure. If you look at who makes the most money vocationally, it's CEOs.
Correct.
They are not entrepreneurs; they're intrapreneurs. Right? They work inside of a structure, and they are just like an absolute master of orchestrating that.
Yeah, the entrepreneur has to sell the company to get to get it. But I guess that's what you're building, right? It's the wealth versus income element to it.
Yeah.
Seth Godin made an interesting comparison, and I think I just remember his book, The Dip or The Purple Cow, where he talked about the difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to butcher this, but it was essentially it was the same thing of like, an entrepreneur though really you have to at some point in time enjoy running a business, running it enough to scale it to sell it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas freelancing is more like, it's like gig work, right?
Yeah.
So you could be a photographer and have a photography studio and a photography business and be like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You could also just be like a freelance photographer that's like, yeah, it's $10,000 a shoot. I don't know. I might shoot 10 this year. I might shoot 20. By the way, I don't even like your idea. I'm not going to come shoot your wedding. Oh, that's sexy. You want to jump out of an right? Like the freelancer is more kind of like somebody who has a specific skill set that will apply it at will for money, right? And I think as I've gotten older, I probably now look at myself more as a freelancer than an entrepreneur. Like now that I've built a few businesses or I have some non-existent passive income apparently.
Well, yeah. Let's not, no, we'll break that down at some point, but yes.
But it's the
We're
thing,
vibing.
right?
We're vibing.
Yeah. Like, just get away from me, you nerds.
I get the pun, but come on.
No, but the concept of what I'm hearing you say though is like, I see Jordan, you have a skill set. In your future though, you might choose to apply that skill set on passion projects or one-off projects or places. It just, you're like, you know what, that sounds cool. I want in, or that's a good group of people. I would partner with them, or I just want to do this on my own, as opposed to creating this mechanism or machine where now you have like employees and payroll and system, and you have to now love the business aspect of it instead of like, no, you just want to develop cool shit.
Yeah, and that's why exactly. And so like I would almost take a job where somebody just paid me the equivalent and then just fund it. And all I'm doing is building wealth for some. I mean, the wealth is fun, but I love the job. And so like when I look at it, it's like the realtors. I mean, I think about the most we had 146, right? I wanted to have 15.
Yeah.
I wanted just to be a bunch of buddies sitting around and we're collaborating on deals, right? The management, I thought we'd just manage our stuff, and then we hit like 4,000 units at one point. And I'm like, I don't want to. Okay, that's way more than I wanted. Like, and everything just scaled to the point, and then they got so big, and all that responsibility started pulling me away from what I actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, because now your day is
Yeah.
controlling the machine that's been created.
Exactly. And so like even the syndication stuff, I'm like, that's why I don't want to do that, because then half my day is focused on the investors versus the investment. And so when I look at it, it's just trying to figure out what that looks like. But that's why when I look at that VC type role, which is what I want to build, it's like, I don't want to run your business.
Yeah.
I want to coach your business and put your money and then go to the next guy.
I love the idea of a freelancer. Because I have a tendency to get drawn into what something could be and all the underwriting systems and structures and all of the complexities, right? And there's something beautiful about, I'm really good at that. Yeah. And I don't need all of this structure. I can actually just go do that.
Correct.
I'm good enough that somebody will pay me really well to do that. And when it's done, I'm not tied to it anymore.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
high five.
Correct. Yeah. So I feel like I'm always trying to build that freelance piece into the entrepreneur piece.
Yeah.
So like now it's like, okay, finish the building and I'll hand it to management. Then the issue is then I get a call from management saying, Jordan, something's wrong with the building. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I didn't hand it off. It's still there. And so it's been this constant balance of like either accept it and just understand you're running a business, or figure out better systems, to your point, that make it kind of allow for that freedom. But
Yeah.
it's just until you can afford to hire that staff and take a few hats off, you're wearing them all.
Yeah.
And when it gets hard, like who was it talking about? Elon's statement. He goes, being an entrepreneur is like standing over a cliff eating glass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And staring into the abyss and eating glass. And it's like this idea that every day you're facing the worst problems. The reason it got to you is because no one else could handle it.
Yeah.
And then you're staring into the abyss because you don't know if COVID happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was like, who signs up for this? Sometimes I objectively think that of like,
Yeah.
who signs up for this? And so I have to,
it's total
my getaway is
sadism.
like, I have 2 events a year and I do it is like, I'll go to Brick West on the busiest day. Like when usually there's a couple summers we know are really busy. There'll be 1,000 people. And I just like sit there, I think I said this last time, not creepily, but it's like you appreciate what you
Yeah, I
build.
like to sit and watch
literally,
people.
I think I said that last time. I'm like,
So
can we edit that, Brendan?
It's like,
Rephrase.
I'm like, it's not awkward. I'm not there. But it's like I gain that appreciation for what we're doing because you're running so fast and you're just hoping that piece is there. And then it's always like our holiday party was 4 degrees where I'm like, you get to see a little bit of what you built.
Yeah.
And then that's why that freelancer rings true, is because I actually don't always reflect back on what was built. I just build it and go, build it and go,
Yeah.
build it and go. And I think a true entrepreneur is actually like build it and keep improving the foundation. You don't build it once. You
Yeah.
keep building your foundation as you're going. So it's super interesting, but yeah, super not creepy. If I'm just sitting there at the park. Yeah. I know I asked for somebody else to at least come there so it's not awkward, but but it's cool because you're like that to that effect. It's like that was an idea on the back of a napkin Matt and I had. Literally,
used to,
you know how crazy that is? And it's like now it's a can that gets shipped in 3 states.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like there's every once in a while you give yourself that moment, but it's like that's 2% of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The other 98%, payroll, fires, growth, black swans,
Yeah.
community things, right? And so it's super interesting. But
I used to never realize it until I saw other people's faces. That was usually when I would have a pivotal moment. And I don't remember like but I first started like I remodeled that temple and kind of tricked some sliding dust and like you don't.
Yeah.
But I would tour someone through it, never been there, and then you start to see their face and they would just be like looking around. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh man, they're appreciative of this, right? Like this is cool. But you come there every day. Like, so what I'm getting is your business, your life, your entrepreneurial endeavor can become that grind that you're talking about. But then that's what it feels like. And that's what you see.
yes, correct.
The outsider looking in is like, Jordan's got the life, man.
So, yeah.
He just gets to walk around and stare at people creepily in his own bar. Make business deals on napkins.
God, he's always at Brick West. This crazy guy.
Yeah.
Builds apartments on
And
napkins.
nobody ever writes it on a napkin. It's really hard to write on a napkin, by the way. I do believe it was a scratch piece of paper, but
It is hard to write on a
It's really hard to write on a napkin. But I think that's what's super cool. And I think that's why I want this podcast is to actually encourage you to be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur or take control of your life, but go in with eyes wide open.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Don't go in thinking, oh, I get to go golf every afternoon and I'm going to grab beers and like everyone's going to come use my. No, they're not going to come to your business.
No.
It's not like a baby shower. You don't launch and everybody brings gifts, right? You're grinding every day to do it well.
Well, they do for like the first week if it's a
Hopefully,
restaurant.
Yeah, restaurants. you get the actually soft openings.
I knew this was a great idea. I told you.
Week 2. Week 2. Oh, are we open?
Where is it?
Yeah, are we open?
Yeah.
What'd you guys?
So no, but to your point, it's super fun. So this will be I don't know 7th to call it 17th, 18th one. But it's like everyone's story's been different, but then like our underlying themes of everybody have actually been very consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the success that people found, and everybody had a hardship, like had a hard time struggle at some point, and then everybody kind of found their way, and then everybody kind of built a system or a way to find that passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were the first one to lead with your mission. We had to get it out of everyone else, but so I like that one. You should have a NASCAR jacket with just that.
I should.
right there, just on the sleeve.
Yes. You know, kind of by way of like encouraging people to go into entrepreneurship in maybe a backhanded way.
Sorry, dude. What would you call it?
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask that.
If you had to give it a
You
new
didn't give
name.
it a name. You just said
You said
what?
I hate entrepreneurship, so I'm just curious.
Oh,
Do you
I
have a
just don't
different
like the
name?
word. No, I've made peace with it.
Okay,
It was
okay.
a part of
Just
that.
an
Like,
entree,
it was
we'll call
part
it.
of working through my bitterness and unforgiveness.
Yeah, no, hey.
Around a random word.
the dude.
I was gonna,
the dude it.
yeah, he's got a name for his
it say-
mustache,
yeah,
but
it's
he
like-
doesn't have a name for entrepreneurship.
Yeah. priorities at this point.
Yeah. No, I think that one of the most compelling reasons to be an entrepreneur or to go build something is that if you really, really think about it, you might have a different relationship with the word hard than you think you do.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody looks at the word hard and they're like, oh, that's hard. But then the way that they act is they attack hard. They maybe even put themselves in the line of fire of hard. Maybe when things are easy, they sabotage it and make it hard. Well, you probably should be an entrepreneur because your relationship with hard is that hard isn't something to avoid. Hard is something to attack. Hard is something to strive to overcome. Maybe even you see life as hard and you don't think that's a bad thing, right? So just, you know, if you look at hard as an entrepreneur or, you know, you're thinking about this and you think like, actually, I do hard and I'm okay with doing hard. Maybe I'm built for it. Then this is probably a direction you should go.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to put it. You choose your hard. That's what I found out.
Yeah.
Well, Reed,
Wow. Super
never
good.
disappoint.
Never
As
disappoint.
usual.
Yep.
It's a good one to leave on. If you
good one.
like hard, get into entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Oh,
No,
put that
that's-
on a t-shirt.
Well,
I
that's-
feel like
I
you
just-
said it better.
Did Reed see this?
I don't know. That made it creepy.
Like,
That made it
like-
creepy.
That was mashed my mustache.
Yeah.
If you can handle hard, I don't know. We'll have to wordsmith that.
I don't know.
AI that or
That's-
something.
That's
Yes,
tough. You gotta polish that one.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you guys
No,
having me on.
thank you.
man.
It was a
Yeah.
pleasure meeting you, getting to
And
know you.
Before we send off, man,
Yeah.
where can people find more
Yes.
about you? Because I know you got your own podcast. I know you're doing some cool stuff.
Oh, yeah, what's the name of your
where can
podcast?
people search you out?
Yeah, so SherpaConsultingGroup.com.
Sherpa.group.com. I told you I was pissed about that name, didn't I?
No.
We can talk
You
about
jealous?
it later. Well, no, I had an idea for the word Sherpa on one of my businesses, and then I found out you were launching your consulting company, and I was like, that sucker. Anyways.
Yeah, SherpaConsultingGroup.com.
Great name.
Great name. If you're in the real estate space, you want to go to our podcast is RMG Agent podcast.com. We do that just a passionate way to help real estate agents actually, like, you need to learn these things. And, you know, we're in season 3. If you just follow the bouncing ball, like, you'll be a great agent.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
And then Facebook and all the other things, I'm easy to find.
Nice.
Just look for the mustache.
Creep in the DMs.
Search the mustache. You'll find it.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Thank
thanks.
you again.
Yes,
Pleasure.
guys. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind while you're there, give us a 5-star review. Maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.